In the Newsroom is a production in partnership with Studio Stillwater. Every week, journalists from the Stillwater News Press invite listeners to join us in the newsroom and hear the story behind the stories. Hello and welcome to In the Newsroom. I'm Bo Simmons, Stillwater News Press editor. With me today, Chris Peters.
Howdy.
Ashlyn Huffman.
Hello.
We're just going to act like people know who you are already. We're just going to dive into it.
It's us.
Yeah. Sometimes, maybe because like what circles I'm in and people I follow, but every week now there's always some kind of like journalism discourse, some kind of Twitter discourse, right? There's always something that,
I was
pops
thinking about
up.
that today.
Yeah, it's like, and it's so weird. And like, I'm sure that's our own echo chambers, right?
It's like our own water cooler, right?
but there's always something like, oh, here's a, here, look at what Rolling Stone did with this. And then it becomes part of a larger conversation. In this last week, I guess the previous week, it was I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. I'd say allowing sources to read your stories before they go to print in a way like someone you're working with on the story as a subject.
Mm-hmm.
There's subject to the story, and then they might ask, hey, can I see that before it goes to print or publication or whatever. And that usually it's just such an automatic no.
Yeah.
But the reason they did this is because it was Adam Schefter at ESPN, who was like one of their top guys, right? And like when you're at ESPN, it's all about access and getting sources to tell you things they're not supposed to tell you. And I think it was during a review of all these sort of like Washington football team emails, the kind of thing that got Gruden fired. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That people found the emails he had sent to like an executive for one of these places. But it was kind of cringy because I think he even wrote in there like, Mr. Editor, like he called him, Mr. Editor, take a look at this. And it's just, it's so weird when you see someone do that, but it makes you think, man, how many people are out there actually think that's sort of a common thing? His excuse was he did this because he was really concerned about getting it right. It was a kind of a tricky thing. It had to do with like collective bargaining or that kind of players agreements, things that are hard to understand. So he was, going to give this guy, let him look over it and send it back to him.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just let him look over like a small portion where he had the confusion?
Right. That's
not the entire story.
Yes, but the reason I'm getting to this, does this happen, Ashlyn? Do people ask us to do this?
All the time.
Yes, they do.
And, I always try to put them on hold and act like I'm actually asking my boss something so that they don't keep asking me. But they're like, that's against our policy. Sorry.
When you put people on hold, do you wait for them to say yes?
No.
Sounds like
I'm just like, let me put you on hold
making
for
it
a
sound
minute.
like a car dealership.
I've heard it happen. My desk is right next to Ashlyn's, safely away though. But I could hear her. She'll go right to.
I'll put you on hold,
and like that finger hits that button. I think before she's done saying the sentence.
And it's sort of a thing that's like, boy, my editor wouldn't like that. Like that's an old, the old journalism excuse when you're trying to tell a source that you don't want to do something.
Especially when you've told them multiple times, like, you can't do this. So then at that point, it's like, they're not respecting me. Let me say it's my boss. And it's not a lie. It is our policy. I don't know any journalist out there that's going to say, yeah, you can look at my story.
Yeah. And how does that, so you guys like said, like, I'm new to journalism,
right.
and then that's unethical.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, it's part of it is, your source is your source. Your story is your story, and there should not be this, not even appearance, but even kind of a whiff of like
bias.
Not that, but or I mean, yeah,
like you're too
and like
close
that's
to
why,
them.
yeah, it would be like that they have an editorial impact, or that they have this sort of like touch on your narrative. They're deciding where this thing goes. I mean,
like
that's
their name should be on the byline as well.
Yeah, I mean, not even that. I'm just saying, like, you cannot have a source who is,
calling the shots.
Yeah,
pretty
directing
much.
your story, and you wouldn't want anyone to think that. And even if that's not the case, you wouldn't want people to think that. That's just a huge sort of breach of trust. You've
Got it.
It's like we've spent over 100 years trying to build our trust, and every day sort of reinforcing it, and something like that can sort of,
So there's some
really
rules.
shatter it.
I saw
Definitely.
on Twitter. I don't know. It was some the local TV station, Tulsa or Oklahoma City, and they were like, "Do not touch a journalist's camera lens."
No.
And so this is like the same. Like, okay, folks, here's 2 rules. Don't ask to read the story before it's published.
Oh, there are more than 2.
There's so many rules.
And don't touch the camera.
And okay, about the camera thing, it is so disrespectful because cameras are expensive as crap.
Yeah.
My lens was $1,700, and if you put your hand on it,
let alone getting it all smudgy.
oh my gosh, I know. And I get you don't want your photo taken because you've probably done something that you're not proud of, but don't touch my camera lens.
Yeah, you could like
shield yourself if
Yeah.
you want, but do not touch the camera. That's my rant.
There you go. So when you see Ashlyn out there snapping pics,
Oh yeah, Parks and Rec. You ever seen that when they're trying to get like Wi-Fi for the whole city, and they're asking like this sort of hipster group of internet entrepreneurs. I think the guy says something along the lines of like, "We don't like to tell anybody no, so let me just say."
Nah, bro.
So that's how I always feel. I don't want to tell you no, you can't do that, or you can't see a story, But nah, it's just not gonna happen, bro.
Now, I don't mind to let them see their own quotes that I transcribe.
Well, no, I mean,
that's
or
not
even
that
that.
big of a
It's like,
deal.
if you, and let's, to make that clear, it's especially with a one-on-one interview, and you maybe do have something complicated, and maybe who's to say you didn't write something down the wrong way? So it's, so you might go over and say, is this really what you meant to say? Is this how you're, is this, but yeah, you're not, but that's really different than sharing
giving them your entire story. It's okay to have follow-up questions after an interview or clarification, but it's never okay to send your entire story to someone that you interviewed just so they can check it to see if they like it or not.
And then that's also on you as a journalist to be like, I don't know if I really understand this, and that you're doing the due diligence of following up to make sure
And there's nothing wrong with
you're
not
clear.
understanding something. I would rather know what I'm writing about before I do it versus having to print a correction after.
Yeah.
But
Or sometimes, right, like if you're not sure, like that just gets cut out of the story, right?
When in doubt, leave it out.
Yeah. Okay.
don't start a story with a quote.
All these rules, so many, so many more than two rules. So many rules. Hey, what else? Something very interesting, which also maybe from a sort of journalistic standpoint, just things that don't happen that often. Chris. We started talking. It's so funny how this came about to me, but so I'll just let you say with like how it started and evolved, because you just dive in.
Okay, so we're talking about my my first real story that I kind of just grabbed the wheel and was like, okay,
Yes.
let's see if I can do this. Was it Tuesday night?
It was sort of after hours, I think. Yeah.
Jason, our sports editor, said, hey, we got a message on our Facebook page from presumably a reader that said, hey, the Payne County Sheriff's website looks like it's been hacked. And they sent us a screenshot. And so we go to check it. And initially, on my phone, going to the website, it came up normal. And so I was like, maybe they got some malware on their phone or something like that. And then I was like, you know what? So I was literally like,
But that does happen. Like,
Yeah.
you can pull up to a site, and we've
Yes.
had people send us things
So
like,
it's cached.
look at this, look
Yeah,
at this.
so the way,
something's
like,
wrong. It's no,
the way
it's not.
like websites and all this stuff works, that it takes a while sometimes, especially if you have ever gone to that website before on your device. It will kind of save like what it was before, so it loads faster. Or sometimes what's called the CDN network, the content delivery network, that some of these servers all might use to make their stuff goes faster. It's sometimes delayed. So anyways, I was laying in bed and I was like, man, that's kind of weird. Let me just check. And so I got up, went to my desktop computer, and then that's when it came up. And I'm like, okay, it's not there. I know how to go and look at the source of a website to go and, kind of see like, where's this stuff coming from? And I mean, it was legitimately like on their page. It wasn't redirecting me to another website. Like, it was their website. And on that page, I mean, the person left a Instagram account and a Facebook account. like
they wanted you to know who they were.
Yeah.
And not who not their identity,
no,
but who
and they
who's
had
responsible.
their hacker name,
Right, yeah.
right, which I'll just call root. It was some sort of like roots, AILLIZ something. I don't know how to pronounce it, so we'll just refer to them as root. I mean, and there wasn't like a Facebook user profile; it was a Facebook page, just like our Stillwater News Press page.
Right.
And so I just hit the message button and said, "Hey, I'm with the local newspaper. It seems like you're laying claim to having defaced this website. Care to make any comments?"
Well, what was your method of communication?
I just hit Facebook message.
In Facebook Messenger.
Through Facebook,
Okay, yeah.
from my own personal Facebook account, which I have always set that to 100% public. I think that's the way to keep me from doing stupid stuff online, is if it's public, then, well, if I said it, I said it. It's out there. So he could have, or I don't know if it's he, they then probably went and looked at my profile and saw, oh, yeah, I work at the Stillwater News Press. Stillwater's in Payne County, Oklahoma. And so this person was very willing to answer questions. So I sent that message, and then I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning to messages and with screenshots of a bunch of things, or photos taken of a computer screen showing like access to the Linux server, and some like what looked like internal screenshots. And so then I spent that morning basically just chatting with them and just asking, why are you doing this and how did you do it? And so then we got into the how, which was really interesting. So the other thing is the person identified in their response. When I said that, the person said, I am doing it to spread my my beliefs, my religion, and also like I'm very pro-Turkey, the country and their government and the president.
The food. Getting ready for Thanksgiving. He's ready.
Not the bird. I knew Ashlyn would giggle at that.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And then they also said that they were a teenager.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Now, after chatting back and forth all day, and especially the conclusion, I very much feel like this person is possibly a teenager, or at least a younger person.
Well, when you were talking about the conversation, I kind of got the feeling that this seems like a younger person. It seems like someone who this is not a serious thing for them. It's sort of and what did they call it? Hacktivist, and it's sort of just someone who's like let's see if I can do this sort of thing. More along the lines of let's see if it's possible for me to do this, and I'll try it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the technical capabilities, especially when they find a web server that's not been updated in almost 5 years, that's supposedly very easily to go and just to these like hacker resources and be like, hey, I got a Linux server that's running this software. Where's all of its vulnerabilities? And it's like, hey, go run this command, run this command, run this command, and then boom, you're in. And so that allowed him to then access to what he said was, he gave me a list of like 24 different county sheriff's websites that were on that server, At the time, I could only confirm that 3 of them had actually been defaced. But this person definitely wanted attention. So I kind of equate it to like, not to put graffiti artists down. I think it's like legitimate art, but the public defacing. And you're doing it for attention, and you're putting your tag on there. Like, you're not trying to, infiltrate the building you just graffitied or anything like that. You're not trying to steal anything.
Right,
you're trying to get attention.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if no one sees it, you haven't really done anything.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So this person, they very much wanted attention. So when I put it in the story, the picture, I blacked out their username and stuff, because if you went and you Googled their username, there were security websites talking about how this person like hacked a campaign website for Joe Biden in November 2020. And they shared these links, like, here's all the things I've done in the past. But one of the articles was also like, this person is claiming they have done all these things. And is it a person? Is it a group of people? Like, there's no way to really verify that. Right. And then he's asking like they're asking when the story's going to come out and stuff.
likes the ink and likes the press.
And then I didn't send him any links when it was published or anything. They had already found that.
And it was real fast too, right?
Oh,
Weren't we in there? Like, we had just
because we were like, oh shoot, we didn't publish that to Facebook.
It hadn't even gone to social yet.
Yeah.
And someone already reached out like, oh, hey, there it is. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And so they were like, is it going to print? And I was like, well, it's a Thursday. So yeah, it's actually going to print. And they're asking me to take photos of the paper and send to them. And they're like, I really want to impress my friends.
And you were going to be like, I could mail you a copy. Just so you can see where it ends up.
I just said, you got to be a subscriber.
Get that money.
Yep. You can go subscribe. You can go pay a couple bucks. Now, maybe the FBI might use that payment transaction to maybe more track you down. If also supposedly they said that they're actually located in Turkey.
Yeah, but no, this wasn't. It's unique to actually talk to the subject of someone who has essentially committed a crime. I mean, it's, who knows if you'll ever find anyone or ever punish them, especially if they're across the world,
Yeah.
And it's it costs time and money for the people who have to go back and fix their websites. But to actually interview that subject, and there's very little doubt that this person or group of people or collective or whatever was not responsible for this thing. The way they kept track of it, and at least it was at least someone who was able to document everything.
Yeah, they documented it. And then while I was sitting there chatting with them, they were like, "Go to the page," they're like, hit F5. So I'm like, I'm on a Mac. F5 doesn't really do the same thing, but that's what it would do on a PC or whatever. Just refresh your shortcut.
Yeah, right.
And the Payne County website would be back up normal, and then he'd do it again, and then it was back. So they could turn it on and off. Yeah, and that was proof for me.
It's funny you were talking about where you can see source code and this and that. Mm-hmm. Did you see the story out of Missouri?
Yeah, they're trying to sue a journalist for looking at the source code. So we're talking about like actual hackers. Like, you ever heard of like Black Hat Conference? So these are like professional hackers that specifically go out to try to find vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and then they try to basically get paid by the companies to say, hey, I found this weakness. Now, a lot of the big companies actually have a system for that. Like, they actually encourage that. Like, if you can find a vulnerability, it's like a bug bounty hunter, basically.
Sure, I got you.
And a newspaper is doing it, not requesting any, like, hey, we found a vulnerability on your website. But the other thing is they'll tell the company on the down low. And then usually if the company doesn't respond or doesn't patch it, then they go public, because now it's more like hey, this vulnerability allowed me to do this thing, get access to this. I am going to go public with it, and so.
Well, and that's the other thing, and that's sort of everyone's talking about when I say if you see the Twitter thread, everyone who sort of works in cybersecurity or IT or something, they're like, number one, this isn't a hack. This was a reporter in Missouri who went onto one of the state agency websites and through their web browser was just looking at like the HTML source code, right? Wasn't it just sort of something?
Yeah, like
really
unencrypted. It's all there to just you could just do a simple document search and start finding names and social security numbers.
And when they did that, they saw that there was a bunch of teacher social security numbers, and so they wrote this thing about it. Even sort of alerted them that like, hey, this is in your source code. This should not be here. And so the governor responds. Calling this person like a criminal and a hacker, and what was it?
$50,000 investigation.
Wants going to launch an investigation into this person.
$50,000.
Yeah, and everybody's like, man, number one, they've told you everything they've done. It's like they've prevented you from this being a problem. Yeah, it's so weird how they were treating it like we have to punish this person for exposing this.
It's kind of like one of those things where you have to save your face. Like you screwed up, but now you've got to blame someone else.
Absolutely, it's something like that. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it played out the way it did, or how someone would double down on.
I think it will be interesting, someone. And maybe you guys probably know more about when stuff like this actually goes to a court cases. But I can imagine if it goes to a court case, couldn't it be possible that the judge would find that they're actually the state's at fault?
I'll be shocked if it doesn't get thrown out.
That they could be in trouble because they're not protecting people's data.
And as far as like what freedoms we have, of the press and things like that, it's like you can print almost anything, in this country. And if someone stole some documents from a federal agency, gave them to you, and you printed it, that is still a thing you would be allowed to do as the journalist. Now, they're in trouble, but you're not. But you as a journalist cannot steal your own stuff.
Yeah.
That's still, you could not
So find
hack
people
anything.
who will steal for you.
Yeah, you couldn't take photos of classified things.
No.
Actually, no. That would make you an accomplice to
nah, bro.
Nah, man.
Let me say nah, bro. We're gonna have to another disclaimer.
But this is the equivalent of like,
guys, it's a joke.
Maybe like a state employee like drops their briefcase full of private information in the streets. I don't even think it's
that. I don't even think it's that because you have not. Your website is already a public site.
Yeah. Oh, it's more like you just plastered, like you just made your wallpaper with people's private information.
None of this was like classified. This was essentially.
Like you posted it there, and you're like, oh, why did you look?
Yeah,
you weren't supposed to look at that.
You put something that wasn't supposed to be there in a place it wasn't supposed to be.
But in reality, this is probably the governor and certain people not understanding, once again, how technology and the internet works.
Yep.
I'm curious on how that even happened. Like, how do you have those available?
You can go to any website on your browser, and you can click a view source, and you can see all the gobbledygook that's underneath.
See, I don't know anything about technology, so I would never know.
So you can run for governor.
Yes, I could. Vote for Ashland.
But it reminds me of, and I was talking about this in other editorial board about something else. Like, you remember the first time they had Zuckerberg up in front of Congress for those hearings, and like every one of those people were so clueless. It was so embarrassing. And it's like, and he was tap dancing around them by answering the simplest, stupidest questions you could imagine. Yeah. And and if even like two people had known what they were doing, they could have nailed him to the wall because they were doing a lot of creepy things as far as surveillance and taking people's data who didn't know it. Like there was
allowing other companies, like the one that was over there, like allowing other companies to use your tools to do all that.
Yeah, and this was and this was years ago. Like and I think it was the sort of like around the
was the
campaign stuff,
2016,
and they're
yeah.
like, there are companies who are paying for data, and then they're selling data, and they're selling it to campaigns. Like, there's so much going on that was so super shady,
Mm-hmm.
and not a single person knew what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg, and everyone looked bad. And now we got all this other stuff, which hopefully we're going to talk to our former intern, Destinee Adams, about. She's gonna tell us a little bit about Facebook and Instagram. That'll be coming up in a later episode, so
Yeah,
stay
hopefully.
tuned for that.
Yeah, we're thinking
Thanks for
next
doing
week
that.
when
Yeah.
Michelle comes back. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
that'll be nice.
By the way, Michelle,
We miss you.
Oh, Ashland, coming up for us, but in podcast times in the past, is statute of limitations. You're about to wrap up your series on child sexual offenses and abuse and all those things like that. And you looked at the statute of limitations in Oklahoma, what it's compared to other states, what people think about it. What is Oklahoma's statute of limitations?
Well, you have one for criminal cases. Our criminal one is not as bad.
Criminal and civil.
Yes.
Two different things.
So
yeah.
in criminal, it's the age 45, but in civil cases...
So when hold on now, when you're saying the age 45, as a person who, say you were abused as a child, once you turn 45, you can no longer...
Yeah.
The person who was abused, turns 45, that's sort of the cutoff window for them to report
from my
somebody.
understanding, I mean, it's changed a lot throughout the years, but Catherine Robb, who works for the Child USA Advocacy, her thing was that our civil the cutoff is 20 years old, and she said it's tragic because even though our age for criminal is 45, the delayed response says that it's 52 years before someone typically reports. So we're still below. So, I spoke with advocates, lawmakers, and survivors, and they want an elimination of the statute of limitations for this crime. I mean, there's some, like murder, there's no statute of limitations. For different crimes, you have a different statute of limitations. But child sexual abuse, they want it to be gone. And there's some states that have gotten rid of it. Some people call it, there shouldn't be a timestamp on justice. A victim should be allowed to report whenever they want to report, and it can still they can be sued or the case can be prosecuted.
is the whole point of just the concept of statute of limitations, meaning like we feel that if we're going so far back in time that we can't get like enough evidence or anything like that? Like, is it like a...
So it says that these laws place limits on how long the government can wait after a crime is committed before prosecuting a suspect. In Oklahoma, this time limitation for most crimes is 3 years, but there are many crimes that have special limitation periods. Example, murder doesn't have one. Financial crimes, they have 5 or 7 year limitations. And then in regards to sex crimes, there are also special limitation periods. Currently, if the victim is a child, the prosecution must be commenced before the victim's 45th birthday. So they have to have the case prosecuted before the victim is 45. If the victim is an adult, the prosecution must be commenced within 12 years. If the suspect is unknown at the time the crime is committed and is later identified by DNA, the state has 3 years from the time of the identification to commence the prosecution. So, the advocacy group, they've been tracking statute of limitations across the world since 2002, and they have a whole bunch of rankings from states. So,
Are we top 10 in something?
We are below 5.
In the bottom 5.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in the bottom.
On their rankings. Got it.
Yeah, we're less than like 2.
You're meaning by that Oklahoma has greater time limits than most other states, where some states have eliminated them altogether or made given more opportunity in
that's
civil
the
cases.
sad thing is Carol Bush, she is a representative for Oklahoma, and she actually had a House bill that would help with child sexual abuse for civil cases, and it didn't make it to Senate. It passed out of the House, but the Senate never heard it. So she's looking into changing language to see if there is changes that can be made to get it out of both chambers.
What's her bill? Just to eliminate the statute of limitations
for civil
altogether?
cases,
or criminal?
not necessarily criminal. I think it was getting the time limitations from civil cases. So, I'm not 100% sure, but it's hard to explain. I hate when you put me on the spot like this. It's eliminating the time for civil
read
cases.
the story.
Read the story. There's quotes.
No. Yeah, but we're not going to know what the bill looks like when it's until it gets close.
Yeah,
to
the
finished.
original says civil procedure eliminating time limitations for civil actions based on childhood sexual abuse incidents. Now, the website, the advocacy law group, they actually have this on Oklahoma because it was introduced this year. So, but it was not passed. It did not go to Senate. So it has more in-depth in my story than what just that says, because they went into detail about the bill itself. So there will be more detail, but yeah, it didn't pass, unfortunately.
I would imagine anyone who is sort of a, pro or con, so who would be an opponent of this, maybe just people who consider it needs to be tort reform, so people aren't suing each other constantly, sort of thing, so you're not having to, the court's not having to deal with a bunch of court cases. The thing is,
okay, so the statute of limitations has many different levels to it. The confusing part is in the civil cases, you can actually sue an institution, like a school, a church,
right.
Boy Scouts. And I think you have until you're 20 years old to sue that institution.
What?
Yeah.
I thought.
So
I thought 20. I thought by 20 years you meant
both
20,
of them are
20 since the.
No, so both for civil and criminal,
ended.
you have until your 45th birthday. But for institutions, it's 20 years old.
Oh,
and so
okay.
that's what's tragic
I was thinking
about
you said
it.
20 years since the incident occurred.
No, you have 20 years until you're 20 to sue that institution. So their thing is that it looks like in Oklahoma that we would rather protect an institution than protect a child who is being molested. That is what their thing is. And also it was brought up that another reason the bill had pushback is because people aren't educated and they think, oh, well, what about all these false claims? And Carol Bush said this is not about the money. These victims are not getting any money from this.
Yeah.
This is about weeding out the predators that are in our communities that are being hidden because their victims might be outside the statute of limitations to prosecute criminally. So they want to get rid of the statute of limitations just gone. And Utah actually did that.
I think that makes sense in a way that what you're trying to say is before the victim turns 20, they have had to have had some level of maturity and level of stuff to even be able to like a parent or another adult or somebody else is going to have to be involved to like probably help them be willing to like make all that happen.
Right. You're not going to go out and find your own lawyer at 16 and sue folks.
Yeah. And a lot of the survivors I spoke to, only one of them was below the age of 18. They were all 20 and above, and they did not report. Michelle didn't report until she was 31, so her case couldn't even be prosecuted. The other thing about statute of limitations is if it's amended, it doesn't do anything for victims from the past. It helps victims moving forward, but you can't go back in time for criminal cases. So Michelle's was outside the statute of limitations from when it happened. So even though it's 45 years has to be commenced before your 45th birthday, that did not apply to Michelle because it didn't pass until 2017, and by then she was already outside the statute of limitations.
Retroactive.
Because she's only 32, so if you think about it, you're like, well, why couldn't she? She's below 45. It was because she was already outside the statute of limitations.
So there was a new law in 2017.
Yeah, in 2017.
Pushed it back a little bit, or up a little bit, I guess.
To 45, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but
now they're even trying
the experts that you've talked to are basically saying most people aren't able to process
until
this
52. Yeah.
On average until later in life that that was wrong what happened to me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of complex parts that go into the statute of limitations. And
Read
I kind of tried to decode
the story.
it. Yeah, read
Saturday,
the story.
right?
Yeah, Saturday. I tried to decode it as best as I could. I talked to
already-
several people, but yeah, read the story, guys.
And I'll read it, but no one else gets to preview it.
Yeah,
Because we don't do that. Nah, bro.
we don't share our stories.
That's right. Oh, yeah. What else? We're going to plug.
Wally Funk.
Yeah, that was a cool thing. You had a lot of fun with
Oh,
Wally.
I did. She
was
had a great
very
personality.
energetic and
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
hooping and hollering and
Yes,
laughing
dancing,
yeah.
hugging, cheering.
She's got very long arms.
Yes,
Her arms are always like out, like she's trying to hug everybody.
she's always excited.
Big.
So coming up, Stillwater Styles out now.
Mm-hmm.
You got a cycling feature from Chris. He knows a little bit about computers and a lot about cycling.
Yeah, so that's why
Check that
Thursdays
out.
is
Yeah.
a special edition because that's when that came out. So my first byline in both. But yeah, I wrote it basically about the winter weather does not have to slow down your ability to enjoy riding your bike, whether that's for recreation or for commuting. You just need the right clothes.
And
And the right clothes are not. It's pretty broad, but there's a strategy in there for how to layer up to ride in cooler and wet weather.
And Ashlyn, you got a dessert in here. What was it?
Oh, Brownie Delight.
Brownie Delight.
It
We got-
is a layer of brownies, a layer of whipped cream, layer of Heath bar, toffee, and then caramel, and you just do it all the way to the top.
Okay. So
Is this
it's-
something that's like brownies cold?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's all cooled. The brownies are cool, and then you just put it in the fridge, and then you're ready to eat it.
Okay, so it's like what they would call a trifle, or something along those lines. It's just layers of
Goodness.
sugary things. Okay.
And Michelle's got a cool article on the Okie bus builders
Yeah.
that turning a school bus into an RV.
They can live and travel in a school bus.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big space, though. It's cool.
Lots
though.
of photos.
Insert that TikTok that says,
You
"How
gotta-
does it feel to be living my dream?"
Big old TV in there. Like it looks like an actual, like kitchen space. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Look forward to an interview we hope to do with Destinee Adams. She had co-authored a piece for Time about Instagram's influence on young women, teen girls.
I've got preteen
Not
girls
good.
right now, so
Not good.
I'm interested to learn more.
And the timing was just crazy. She wrote that piece, and then the whistleblower did their thing on 60 Minutes, like only a couple days later. So the timing's weird.
And Facebook went down.
Facebook goes down, and then everyone is awful out there, I guess. Okay, that's it. That'll do it. We'll see everyone, and thank you for joining us in the newsroom.
In the Newsroom is edited and produced by me, Chris Peters. You can find all of our past episodes and show notes at studiostillwater.net. This podcast is made possible with support from the Stillwater News Press. Please consider subscribing to our award-winning newspaper and help support local journalism. Go to stwnewspress.com to sign up. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.